Themea is Chief of Staff for Young Americans for Liberty. He is up with me tonight. Sean, thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So is CPAC still this conservative platform for candidates who really want to get their name out there, especially presidential hopefuls? Or is this now a glorified Trump rally? I mean, I heard some people calling it TPAC.
Well, unfortunately for CPAC, Trump is now the establishment. And you look back, CPACs of years past, I've been there 7 times, conservative and libertarian activists have always been more engaged in attending and with energy and having young people than the Trump base. Now you've got a scenario where Trump is running a more lackluster campaign now than he did by far in 2016. And so there's less engagement. There's less people there. You've got DeSantis not even attending, which takes away a big chunk of people who would have otherwise attended. So right now, I think we're seeing that there's no clear grassroots candidate that's articulating a message of what we should stand for. We've just got Trump and others articulating what we should stand against, a fracture in the GOP. And I think that's why we're seeing what we're seeing on the ground at CPAC.
Yeah, I mean, at CPAC, you're seeing a lot of Trump's family. You're seeing the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene, Ted Cruz, Carrie Lake. But as you were mentioning, you know, with what we saw in the midterm elections, with some of the candidates that Trump supported not winning, is he the guy? Is he the man that people are going to be rallying against for the Republican Party? Is that where we are, at least right now?
Well, right now, you look at most polls, he's in the lead by a good chunk. Of course, it's anyone's game. In 2015, Scott Walker was at the top of the polls, and he was doing great. Things can change at a heartbeat. And, you know, I think that Trump's whole brand of staking himself on winning, right, of these last several election cycles, that's hurting him. People are noticing. People are looking for an alternative. And right now, the Republican Party is searching on this presidential campaign field for who can lead them to victory. And I don't think a lot of people are saying it out loud, but I do think people want someone who can speak to the merits of this country and what we could become, not just be anti-Biden, not just be anti-left, but what we can stand for. We can stand strongly for peace, prosperity, and merit. And right now, we're just not really seeing that in the GOP discourse with these candidates thus far.
So in a few hours, Trump will actually be taking the stage at CPAC and speaking. Speak to the kind of message that he is, I guess, campaigning on right now, and the kind of message that you think Republicans should be campaigning on right now in order to win that presidential seat in 2024.
Well, it's a nasty time out there right now. We've got people really campaigning against the left, which we should stand against, because everything comes back to authoritarianism and big government for them and control and a lot of radical ideas that people disagree with. But we've got to articulate what we stand for, as I had mentioned earlier. And I think people desperately want that. They want a message there where they know that you can be prosperous in America. Let's talk about getting the government out of the way and unleashing the free market. They want an America that's at peace. I mean, we're on the brink of World War III right now. Most Americans greatly oppose the idea of sending funds and troops over to Ukraine. We should stand against that and for peace. We want an America where we can get ahead if we work hard. We want an America that doesn't spy on us, or rather, for clarity, right, the government's the one spying on us, not the ambiguous, country of America. But let's stand up and let's call out our enemies, but let's have a positive message of freedom and liberty that we can rally people behind, because you can only rally people so far by being against something and being negative. And I think you see that in a lot of races in 2022.
Right. They need to have some concrete solutions as well going forward. Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, who is not formally announced, VP Mike Pence, or Nikki Haley, Sununu, Tim Scott, do any of them carry weight? I mean, if it's not President Trump in 2024, do you think it's going to be some other person that's going to come out and be able to unify the party? Because right now there seems to be a lot of factions in the Republican Party that are not talking the same talk.
Yeah, I think that we are so far out. I think the safe bet right now is Trump or DeSantis, but it's February, or rather March 2023. We've got a long way to go. Anything can happen. You can see some sleeper candidates come out of nowhere. You know, we saw that a few years back. So we should just be looking and analyzing and asking these folks the tough questions about what they stand for. Will they stand for peace? Will they stand for not sending American troops overseas? Will they stand for a free market and unleashing that American spirit? Will they stand against government force, or will they just use it for their own ends? I think at the end of the day, most Americans don't want that, especially the GOP voter base. Rather, they don't want government force. They want to be free. And so let's not get caught up in the personalities, and let's focus on what vision for America these people are articulating. And is it going to be one that mobilizes enough voters to be against Joe Biden and put us in a better place than having Joe Biden in the White House?
Really quickly, I have 10 seconds here. Did it make a difference that McConnell and McCarthy were not at this convention?
No, at the end of the day, nobody really likes McConnell. Nobody really likes McCarthy. They just use them for access and for power. So doesn't matter.
All right, Sean Themea, we can have a lot more questions to get into. We're going to have a lot of talking to do over the next year. So I thank you for your perspective and for staying up late with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.